Alright, so today I'm going to try a cocktail recipe for the first time, and chances are you've never even heard of it. It's called a sugar plum. Now, a name like that is probably not going to inspire confidence in the average self-respecting cocktailian. But let me say before I taste it that this recipe hinges on one special cocktail ingredient, which, if you buy from the store, is probably going to leave you pretty disappointed. But if you make it at home, it might just become one of your new favorites. But more on that later. For now, let's make this drink. Today's recipe comes to us from Regarding Cocktails by Sasha Petraske and was created by bartender Joseph Schwartz. Now, I'm only going to cover this once, but I've decided to no longer include close-up shots of the artwork of this book, as I fear I might be undercutting all of the hard work that went into it, and I'm happy to share the recipe, but if you want to see the inside of one of the coolest bar books on the market today, you need to get yourself a copy. The beauty of this recipe is its simplicity: gin, grapefruit juice, and grenadine. And while I do think that using a very flavorful, interesting gin and fresh squeezed grapefruit juice really have a large impact on the final result, the grenadine is really the ingredient upon which this drink stands or falls. Grenadine, contrary to common knowledge, is not cherry flavored, but pomegranate flavored, and actually one of the easiest syrups you can make at home. I strongly recommend using the recipe from Anders Erickson, linked below, and that is the grenadine that I'm using here. Excess grenadine keeps very well in the freezer, so don't be afraid of making a large batch. Having good grenadine on hand opens up a huge repertoire of otherwise disappointing old cocktail recipes and is one of the most underrated cocktail ingredients. To assemble, combine in a cocktail shaker a half ounce of grenadine, 1 ounce of freshly squeezed grapefruit juice, which can be a little tricky if you don't have the proper size juicer, and 2 ounces of your favorite gin. Here I'm using the Rainier Beer Company's Mountain Fresh gin, made with all the usual botanicals, as well as wild huckleberries and spruce, which are not only great tasting additions, but are also native flavors of the Evergreen State, my home state of Washington. If you have a chance to try it, I highly recommend doing so. Now, apparently I forgot to film myself adding ice and shaking it very thoroughly until the tin is painfully cold to hold on to. But please take that as a prescription for success before straining the drink into a chilled coupe and serving. And that is the sugar plum. Alright, well, it is the best part of the video. Time to try this thing and find out how it is. So, bottoms up. Cheers. So it is definitely a sweet cocktail, but it's not too sweet. It's got enough bitterness from the grapefruit to kind of balance it out. The rose water and the grenadine and the grapefruit are a really interesting pairing, and the spruce from the gin is really coming through pretty loud. Kind of at the end of it you can start to taste the blueberry in the gin, and this is definitely an easy drinking gin cocktail. It's really interesting. Yeah, so the bitterness I think is what balances it out really well. I think that if you didn't have the bitterness in the grapefruit, it wouldn't work at all. It would be way too sweet. But you only have a half ounce of grenadine and you have a full ounce of grapefruit, so it's really more grapefruit and gin, and then the grenadine is sort of bringing out more flavors because the sugar is allowing more of the flavors in the gin and the grapefruit to pop. You know, sugar can behave a lot like salt in that it is a flavor booster or amplifier. And in this case, I think that if you just had grapefruit and gin, it would taste kind of flat. And so this is really giving a lot to it. This also could be served as a Collins, you know, with bubbles. And I think it would be really good that way as well. A little bit less sweet overall because of the dilution from your carbonated water, but I still think it would bring a lot of flavor to even a Tom Collinsified version of this. Collinsified, is that a verb now? Is everything a verb? I think every bartender needs to have a few drinks in their repertoire that are not too adult tasting, something that's not too grown up, something you can serve to someone who doesn't have a palate that is prepared for Fernet Branca and, you know, wet martinis and things like that. Something that's going to appeal to someone who maybe has sweeter tastes and doesn't want something that's going to challenge them and fight with them. You know, beyond the fact that it's sweet and it's easy to drink, it has a pretty low spirit presence. So this has as much alcohol in it as a proper stirred martini, But because of the way that the grapefruit and grenadine are working together, it doesn't feel spirit forward. It'll get you just as drunk as a super dry vodka martini, but it's not going to punch you in the face with ethanol, which sometimes is kind of nice, to be honest. And the more you sip on it, the more complex it gets. So as far as making your own homemade grenadine, it's very easy. The full recipe is in the video description, as well as a link to Anders Erickson's channel, where I got the recipe originally. Let me just say, not all homemade grenadine recipes are created equal, so this one is a lot better than ones that I've done before. I hope to see you and maybe some of your friends in the next video. Until then, cheers. Delicious.